poets to kind of fit the time now. I think everybody will agree that it's been a crazy week, both exhilarating and kind of scary.
Mhm.
So I looked for on the Poetry Foundation's website, and I've got three short ones. All right. One is just a statement from Audre Lorde, and she says, "Poetry lays the foundations for a future of change, a bridge across our fears of what has never been before." Our need for poetry. Okay. The first poem is by Walt Whitman, which everyone knows. He's an established poet, American poet, and it's called "Long, Too Long America." One moment. Long, too long, America. Traveling roads all even and peaceful, you learned from joys and prosperity only. But now, now, to learn from crises of anguish, advancing, grappling with direst fate and recoiling not. And now to conceive and show to the world what your children en masse really are. For who except myself has yet conceived what your children en masse really are? That's Walt Whitman.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
let me.
would say that's about as apropos as you could possibly get to this
Yeah,
week.
I really needed to find something by, people who were established because, we've been here before, but then we forget.
Yes.
Okay,
Mm.
this next one, and actually it's the last one, it's by Gwendolyn Brooks. Very short. We are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. We are each other's magnitude and bond. So that's it.
Beautiful. Yeah.
The Walt Whitman poem was really appropriate and wonderful to hear right now. Thank you for finding it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And the second one was really apropos too.
Very nice.
Thank you.
yeah, both for hope. I'm an optimistic person, and I think the ideal spirit of Americans is that we're optimistic, but then we forget
Yes.
that there's another part of us, and that narrative is not heard worldwide, particularly when we talk about democracy. And there are voices, there are lots of voices. Let's look at Black Lives Matter and many others that have said there have been problems in this country for a long time. And then we forget. And then we have, because people forget or don't want to hear those voices, we have what happened day before yesterday.
Yes.
And Walt Whitman, he speaks to that. This is a guy from long ago, all right? So I needed to hear that, to see this, not only what's in my head.
Mhm.
It's like we all have to pay attention, and what will we learn and go from here with? I don't know. This is a huge conversation all
Mhm.
Americans should be having. But poetry is best. Fewer words and just capture what's going on. Okay.
It's comforting to know that we've been through greater challenges and come through okay in the end, and we're not the first to face these things.
Right.
So
Maybe I'm not an American, even though I became a citizen, because the fact that underlying the assault on the Capitol, there are 39% of Americans and voters who have believed the lies that have been disseminated. It occurs to me that it is important to understand how can you understand how they were in that position and just got riled up by the president, which I think is clear, the president and his son, and Rudy Giuliani, if you watched the film. So I'm not pessimistic because I listen to the reactions, but on the other hand, we have a lot of work to do, and we have possibly talk to people who are on that side, because there are lots and lots and lots of them. I don't know how to do that, but I'm just raising it because it's important. And it does relate to Black Lives Matter, and it does relate to I'm so glad that the Metropolitan Police, at least in DC, were not defunded, because defunding the police would have meant, if all the different bits of police, different organizations of police had been defunded, it would have been even worse. So I think there's another solution than defund the police. Well, I think it's demilitarize the police, of course, but anyway, that's really against US culture, and I know that. But anyway, I just wanted to try and understand all the components of what happened and then what is still happening. And I'm also really glad that Georgia has 2 new senators who are going to be in the Senate. And that's going to make it somewhat easier, but I believe we're still in a crisis. We just have to work through it and try and do stuff, even if we're at home. Sorry, I went on too long.
That's
No, I
okay.
think it's
That's
very
okay.
important.
All good.
You did, and we should be more talks like this. I think it'll help each other even understand.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I think a big question for all of us to consider, and I'll look for more poetry about this. Who do we say that we are as Americans?
Yes.
So there are 2 different voices. The group that protested and stormed the Capitol, and what number 45 has been saying for 4 years, when they talk about Americans, they're cutting off 50% of the people here. That's the narrative
At
I've been
least
hearing for
50%.
4 years. 50% of the people. And so, I think one conversation we need to have is, when we, as Americans, everybody, for that other side, those people who stormed that Capitol, what is it that they want, really? Like, I understand a lot of the concerns of working class and poor people. I mean, I'm part of that. But for the group, Trumpicans or whatever they're called, when they talk about America, what is it that they envision? This is a huge discussion everybody has to have.
Amen.
Because our president, this current president, when he talks about us, and it ain't including me. It's not including
Absolutely.
50% of the people in this country. So I think that's a conversation that everybody has to have. I don't know, we're still in a crisis. And I'm just praying for the next administration that comes in, that we can all be supportive, that we listen, but nobody can perform miracles. And Lord knows we need poetry right now. We just need to tap into our feelings and think about best ways to express ourselves. I'm a retiree from Cornell, so sometimes the academic people, we talk too much. So I'm just shut up. Poetry is
No, I think
what we need.
talking
Just
is
tap
important.
in and stop and feel for it. Look at the flowers around us. Look at our neighbors. Look at who we are, and try to understand one another more. But these folks who stormed the Capitol and who've been part of this movement for longer than 4 years, what do they envision? It is so scary to me. I'm feeling a lot of anxiety. What are people envisioning when they want to tear apart this country, if they don't believe in democracy? What is it? Lord, okay, let me shut up because
Okay.
I need to hear something comforting right now. I'm very anxious.
Well, I mean, I feel that, you know, part of it is that there's this social isolation. I think when people are closer to people and they're next to their neighbors and they see that their neighbors are other people just like them, that really helps. And that's missing right now because we're all supposed to be socially isolated and distant and whatever. I mean, I think that's part of what kind of stirred. I mean, you know, certainly the president stirred up the pot, but it seems to have really, the violence seems to have really accelerated in the last year. And so, you know, that may be sort of correlated with what's going on in terms of our own health and safety, that we have to separate from each other at this point.
Mhm.
I think
And
the
so we don't
violence,
communicate as well
Yeah.
as we, I mean, I think you can feel the energy of other people when you're close to them. You don't even have to talk to them. You know what I mean? So, and if that's missing, then you're missing a really important part of, you know, being an American. I don't know. That's just my take.
Gwyneth, I agreed that the you know, social isolation of the COVID period is definitely adding to the tension. But I don't know, Francine, you said, what do these people want? They want a white America. That's what they want. I mean, I don't think there's been any doubt, even from the period of the election
Beginning.
in 2016, that racism was at the core of what Trump's agenda is. And I think it's just so profoundly deep. And that's what I find the most, you know, I think maybe depressing about this, because, you know, I like to think, oh, well, I'm a recovering racist, you know, I'm trying not to be racist. But the point is, the country was founded with racism right there in the Constitution. And that's what I think he wants. I think that's what his supporters want. But I would like to say that I watched it all day. I don't know if the rest of you were glued to the TV, but
Oh, no.
Yes.
you know, I watched it,
Okay,
and
yeah.
what the different channels were showing that I saw didn't seem as destructive as what I realized it was. I mean, physically destructive, and or even as violent in within the Capitol as what subsequent videos and, you know, things have shown. I mean, clearly there were people who were urinating in there. It was really bad. And but there were people who, I mean, I think there were even some who were like, right, I'm trying to remember whether a reporter said this or whether I heard someone walking away from the Capitol who was a demonstrator saying, this isn't what I came for. So there were people in that crowd who at least understood something bad was happening. Maybe not from the perspective that we might consider, but they knew that something had gone off the rails there. So that I found at least a little heartening. And there have been stories I've heard since then of, you know, people saying, oh, you know, I have an uncle who loves Trump, but man, even he said, this is the end, this guy's got to go. So, you know, I like to maybe think there were people who learned something from this. But there's, you know, small steps, right? Small steps.
Well, getting back to poetry for a minute.
Yes, please.
This-
Thank you.
Good
well,
point.
wait, let me finish. This conversation reminds me of a poem that I wrote and did a reading at the Odyssey bookstore. I know, Zach, you were there. I don't know if anybody else, but I'm going to read it anyway. It's called Morning, MOURNING, Morning America. And I think it's appropriate to put this in to go with this conversation. Majestic beacon of majestic beacon of light, high above the land, welcoming strangers, proud, tall, boasting the best. Pride goes before a fall, and now we have fallen. In God we trust, a land of freedom, a world leader. The secret is out, exposed by an unseen virus, shamed. The rotten core oozes in the streets. the way of life shattered, the envy of nations no more, the sham of superiority pitied, the foundation on which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for some, challenged and found wanting, challenged and lost. Life-altering events, not new, exposed for all the world to see, not new. Families have known and felt and hurt for generations. Families have mourned for generations. Now America shares their pain, mourning America.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
that's perfect.
Do you think you could send that to Zach and then he could post it?
That'd be great.
Yes.
Be happy to.
Okay.
I know that I have a feeling you'll probably be asked to contribute that to a program in the near future, if you're willing. The Black History Month talent show is coming up, so
Oh, wow.
you're
Well-
gonna end up being the senior program representative for all our GIAC programs.
Well, it is published in this.
Oh, right. Pieces of life.
I bought your book of poems. I bought two
Oh,
after I
thank
first
you.
heard you, and I was going to give them away as gifts, and then I decided to keep one and give that one, Pieces of Life, away to a friend. But thank you for reading that. It's very apt for our times.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought about that when I saw all the videos, because I didn't know until like that evening or the next day what had happened, because, and then I thought, man, this is mourning America.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it came, I mean, you focus in on the virus, and some people were paying attention, some people weren't, about the inequity in healthcare, and how those of us who are doing well, including young people who don't think there's a threat, just to continue to go on and do what they do. When we don't pay attention, it just blows up in our face. So hopefully we learn, we continue to have conversations with each other, and not only talk to people who agree with us and look like us, but to have conversations with people even in our own community, outside of Ithaca, and try to understand and listen to them and have people listen to us.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important. Thank you, Janie, I'm sorry.
One.
And you were going to say something?
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Joanne.
Oh, one thing that's positive is that Tom Reed at least did not support. He was in favor of certifying the election, so
Across the aisle.
that was at least a good thing. And he made that statement early. It was before the Capitol was attacked.
Exactly.
So he wasn't just another one of the rats getting off of the sinking ship, like so many of them have been doing. Pardon my comment.
It's the truth.
But there was one thing, this might sound shocking, but when I was watching this stuff, including some of the photographs, remember the guy who was in Pelosi's office and all this stuff, his feet up on the desk and everything, I actually started having a little sympathy for them. And I mean, ironically, Trump says, that's your house. The Capitol is your house. And I say ironically, because of course he doesn't care anything about the United States as far as I can tell, but that's true. And my own feeling is that our Congress has not really been listening to us for a very long time. And that doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. And these people had really had it. And, so there was part of me that said, wow, there are real people sitting in the Capitol, That was kind of before I saw how bad the destruction had been and how violent it had been, because that wasn't clear, I don't think, for much of Wednesday. But people are frustrated, and they're frustrated for probably a much larger complex of reasons than just their white nationalism. And maybe that's one of the ways I don't know how to talk to people either about this. And so maybe that's one of the avenues we can have in. We all need healthcare, right? And that seems to resonate even with a lot of Trump supporters. So maybe there are little things that we can start moving on. We'll have to see.
In relation to Janie's Morning America poem, when I was hearing her say it, I was thinking that the virus that has infected us is also this acceleration of violence to put across your point, So the virus is also the spreading of violence and making it okay, making it one of the ways that you express yourself. I hope that we can. I don't know how we could address that, but the Centers for Disease Control thinks or argues that violence among people is a disease. I mean, they track it. So I just heard your poem also talking about that aspect of America.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It had at least two meanings.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, present company excluded. I mean, maybe something hopeful about that was that there were mostly older people there, they said. And so maybe the young people are more enlightened than the old folks. This is the old guard kind of rebelling because they're losing what they think they want. I don't know. That's one way to look at it. They said that the average age was about 40.
Really?
People. Yeah.
I'm not convinced of that at all. I mean, maybe it was 40, maybe it was 35, maybe it was 30. I mean, it seemed to me there was a wide range of ages there. And that it was, I've come to the horrible realization that until most of our generation is gone, some of these problems will not be solved, which just it chokes me up, but I've come to really feel that way. But there were plenty of younger people there. And I think it bodes ill, and we just have to, on the other hand, when you looked at, I don't know if anybody looked at the statistics that they kept running across the screen of some of the news programs about Georgia, and they were analyzing, whether people had college degrees or not, whether they were white women or whether they were Black women or whatever. And it did indicate clearly that people under 40 were voting much more heavily for the Democrats than certainly people over 65. But I don't know, where did they come up with those statistics, Gwyneth? Do you know?
I'm sorry, I didn't follow up. I just saw the headline on CNN and I thought, oh, well, maybe it's, it's a sign that things will be better eventually.
Well, that may be the case, at least with people under 30. I hope. I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to switch gears again. Does anybody else have a poem they'd like to read?
Well,
go ahead, Leslie.
oh, so this is what I was originally going to read, and I'm going to go ahead and do it anyhow, just because this seems so weird and quirky to me. So we have a little free library in front of the house. And last weekend, 2 things of paper showed up, 2 copies. And it's the day I received my PhD. And it's by GIAC, who's originally from the Philippines. And this is the poem. And so this is a person from another country who came here to get his PhD. And this is what he said. The day I receive my PhD, I'll head out into the streets to hand out my dissertation abstract like discount hotel flyers. For Christmas, I'll send copies of my diploma to my aunts in Florida as a token of affection. Maybe I'll stroll down into City Hall and quiz the barber on the mysteries of Minkowski and space and the quantum dot. I'll call the mayor and invite him to a glass of wine to discuss the staggering implications of my spectral discoveries, while in the distance, prepubescent goats cavort in the Everglades under the sun. I think I'll fly to the Pacific to wrap little baby whales with my PhD and proclaim to all my fellow sufferers, by the power invested in me by the great universities of the West and East, I celebrate all our great sins and harbor in my heart all our slim-limbed affectations. I'll wear a flowing toga and carry a scepter made of green tuft. Searching for a footnote for the meaning of life, a monk will find it in a footnote on page 873 of an unpublished treatise found after my death inside my medicine cabinet, besides the oatmeal cookies. In crowds, I'll secretly laugh to myself, having just mapped out Lucan's topology in my mind. I'll talk a little Latin or Celtic to women, and their bras will unhook themselves, welcoming me into the warmth of their fold. I'll trace the arc of Mercury, compute the angle of the zodiac from the window, and plot the erratic flight of bees. I'll send off little paper airplanes to the moon, forge world peace, vanish on a long journey far up into the Himalayan mountains to talk to the gods. I will try to live forever, if only for a while. So this was an interesting poem. Now and this is his dissertation distract. I'm not going to read it, but its title is Janus Starch Particles, Synthesis and Characterization. And it has things, well, the summary. Overall, these Janus particles show promise as plant-based texturizers with improving texturizing functionalities for potential calorie reduction. So the thought that this kid who's doing this bizarre esoteric work wrote not only this poem, but then when I Googled him, he's published a number of books of poetry or treatises of poetry. And I just thought that was such an interesting juxtaposition in life.
Good for him. He's alive.
He's alive, and he went around and he put them in all the little libraries in my general neighborhood, maybe downtown too.
Yeah, that's
So.
wonderful. Again, I think just taking some time to get outside of our bubbles sometimes and feel and see is so important so that we don't lose touch with what's really going on.
I know it sure tickled my grandkids to see this poem.
Seems like you got a real left brain and right brain experience there, both the abstract and the poem.
Exactly. They liked the poem better than the abstract.
Me too.
Me also, yeah.
So.
Oh dear.
Leslie, you have another one?
No, that was it. Just, I mean, once that showed up in my library, I had to share it with the world,
Thank you.
Thank you.
at least our part of the world.
Okay, somebody else?
I've got two from my father as usual. And he usually writes about nature. He does nature poetry. The two that I'm going to read, well, one is about me. So the first one is family, and the other one is music, which is an important part of his life, and maybe you'll have some association with the song that he's referring to. Anyways, so the first one is a short one. Again, this is from my father's book, Creatures. I don't know, it's from about 1981 or 2, so it's a while back. And the title of the poem is Zach's Foot. Good subject. So I sit looking at my baby son's foot, holding it in my hand, small, thick, without a graceful arch, an animal that would live under leaves, block-shaped with small toes and tiny clear nails. The soft skin and firm, and the skin soft and firm and clear. It has the feel of the poems a man should write in old age. That's it. I can illustrate by showing you my foot if you like. I'll spare you though. I'll spare you.
That's okay. It's probably changed by now.
It's changed a bit, probably.
Word for it.
All right, and the second one. This is from a more recent book called That Was Really Something. Let me publish this. 2018. And one of the things I really appreciate about this particular group that's begun is the excuse to go back and look through my father's old poems, the books that I've got here. And some really stick out for one reason or another. And this one is, I think it's a decent poem. But I also remember hearing him talk about having to get the rights to mention the song in it. And I guess in the old days, you just would have done it and no one would have known, from a book of poems probably. So it gets bought by, 50 people or whatever, and you don't have to pay royalties. But his publisher insisted that they had to go through and do it right. And so the song it refers to, they had to pay $500 or something for the rights to do it. But my father, even though he was only going to make $100 or $200 from the books, thought it wanted to do it right. And so this is, it's all legal and legit, this poem. So it's called Do-Wah Diddy. At the concert band, excellent local musicians played somewhere in the middle, Do-Wah Diddy, which may not be the greatest song ever written, or even of that era, but it was and is a pretty great song, both musically and lyrically, if you ask me. I know it primarily, of course, as you probably do too, from Manfred Mann's immortal hit, though it was first recorded by the Exciters, and there was another version by Reparata and the Deltrons. I remember walking down the woods road, singing it with Heather. Do we get less do-wah diddy as time goes on? Maybe, except for the deeper do-wah diddy that comes with age. I was singing along inwardly as the band and the lead singer put it out there on the air. As great a song as I remembered it. A great song as Dadu Ran Ran or Rama Lama Ding Dong, or for that matter, Papa Mau Mau. All good songs to know as time goes on, to sing to yourself. Just the phrases themselves are good to know. If someone asks me a question I can't or don't want to answer, I sometimes say, not aggressively, but calmly, do-wah diddy diddy. It explains not everything, but a lot, enough. Do-wah diddy, dum diddy do.
I love it.
I love it.
Yes.
Somebody knows the song. I don't remember the song at all. Does anybody?
Oh,
I do.
I remember.
Yeah.
Walking down the street singing do.
That's it.
Singing do-wah-diddy-diddy-dum.
I love music. I'm so glad that you wrote that you read.
Oh,
that
all of
poem.
those bring back memories.
Yes,
Oh
it did.
yeah.
Wait, how old's your dad?
Born in 47, so
Okay, I was born in 49, so he's
And I was
We,
born
we
46.
remember those
Yeah, I was
songs.
born in one, so.
Same generation.
It's so important. And we need music now a lot too. I
Yes.
find when I walk, I plug into my iPhone and listen to music from the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Mhm.
And I just love it. You know, it takes me to another place, and we
Yeah.
need music. We need poets. We need music.
Mhm.
Yeah. We need the arts.
Yeah, food for the soul. It's true.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
Another poem from someone? I see, Margot, you unmuted yourself. Gotcha.
I'm having a hard time finding one. I love the uplift I'm getting from this group. It's
Yes, yes.
really helpful.
These are my books.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you all.
Always good to see you. Even when you're muted, it's still good.
Thank
to
you.
see
Am I still muted?
No, no, you're not.
No,
Good. I'm glad you heard how grateful I am.
Other poems?
So I have a sort of sad one that I wrote about my friend. So I think
Okay.
probably we should end with something else other than this. But dear Stephen, today you would have been 72. I feel your presence near me as I walk to the bench to plant bulbs in memory of you. You are the sensation of a chill down my spine as my heart breaks open. I miss you, my friend. It is fitting that the heavens are lashing me with tears as I walk the gently graded path to my destination. I kneel to the ground, kissed by those heavenly tears, and begin to dig holes. Although the earth softly yields to my trowel, the digging is made more laborious by the myriad rocks that resist my efforts. The rocks are a metaphor for our relationships. We sometimes had to dig pretty deep to find the rich, fertile soil of friendship. I take a moment from my labor to reflect on that friendship. Stephen, I wish I could have been there more for you. I often grew impatient with your stories, having heard them so many times. I conveniently forgot that I had been repeating my same sagas to you for years and years, and that you had patiently listened to me, offering non-judgmental counseling when needed. You gave me so much, and I never acknowledged to you or myself how much it meant to me. And then there were your fiery outbursts that sometimes seemed to erupt without provocation. My conflict avoidant nature rebelled against these eruptions, and I sometimes stopped talking about things that matter, which in turn led to feelings of guilt for not sharing. I guess you also tried to hide things from me and perhaps from yourself as well. As your world began to shrink, the will that had so long been able to keep you alive began to wane. Fewer walks, less food, less movement. As your body began to give out, you heroically soldiered on without much complaint, even though there were some days where I am sure you felt like crap. Your love-hate relationship with medicine wore you down and ate away at your beliefs. In your final days, your body grew cold and you couldn't rekindle the life force that had begun to leave you. I watched you a few hours before your death. Watch the inhales as they struggle to reach their peak, followed by sputtering exhales. You no longer seem conscious, a blessing perhaps, as you were relieved of your suffering. I am now filled with regret for the hugs I didn't give and the words that were left unspoken. I shall miss you. I return from my musings to plant the bulbs in the ground and gently cover them with soil. I shall come back in the spring to check on them, my friend, and spend a few quiet moments with you. With all my love, Gwen.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful.
Mm.
Mhm. Mm.
Someone else?
I think you're up, Janie.
Okay. I have one called A Sea, S-E-A, of Love. Look at this child, my grandbaby, surrounded by love, filled with joy, bursting with pride, my grandbaby. New life, new hope, new dreams, smiling inside and out. Tiny bundle in my arms, a huge place in my heart, my grandbaby, child of my child. I'm lost and found in a sea of love.
Thank you. Beautiful.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
Would you like one more?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, this one has not yet been published. It's called New Year's Resolution.
Ooh.
Your desk is a mess. You can't find a thing. The New Year bells are beginning to ring. Resolutions to change have not worked before. Maybe this year you'll try once more. Move this stack here. Put that stack there. Work on this daily, and then for sure, by year's end, you can look and see a clean desk where clutter used to be.
Also apropos.
Right.
Mhm.
Maybe we should all make a resolution to spend 10 minutes every day clearing one corner of something.
And then you put it back the next week.
Well, that's the problem, because you get more junk mail, right? And you,
Yeah.
Right. Or I just keep moving corners, you know.
Right.
Oh, God.
That's all I'm
You ever
going to
get the impulse?
present today.
well, have you ever just put your arm over it and said, I'm just going to shove it all right into the trash can?
Oh no, there's probably something important in there.
Well, I know, something you haven't read for 5 months, right? I mean, that's the way I am.
I clear clutter fast before company.
Right,
Now
right.
I'm trying to figure out what I did. Where did I put
Where's it
where did
at?
I put those buttons? I moved quickly to sew on my winter coat.
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh, I have thousands of buttons, Francine. I can
yeah.
give them all to you.
Or hiding things before the grandbaby comes. I love your poem about your granddaughter,
Yes.
because for
Especially
me,
hide the buttons.
yeah, I'm finding, putting away things before my grandchildren visited for Christmas. I'm still trying to find it, but my house is so clean right now.
Story about buttons if you want to hear it. This was, like my youngest child's in his 50s now. But anyway, when he was in kindergarten, he was, like little kids are, 4 and 5. So the teacher said he was sitting in the corner, and she goes, well, my goodness, what's wrong with Daryl? He's not smiling, he's just sitting there. So finally she said, what's wrong? Nothing. What's wrong? Nothing. What's wrong? My mommy's gonna be sad. She's gonna cry. He goes, why? I'm gonna die. She goes, what? And anyway, he said, I lost the button off my sweater, so I wanted to sew it. So I put it in my mouth to keep it, and I swallowed it.
Oh,
But it did come through. He lived.
I thought it was a small button.
It was a small button, yeah. But he was gonna die.
Oh,
Oh gosh. Mm,
These are great journeys in life, and
yes.
for the lady who spoke before Janie, that was a journey,
yes.
Gosh, yes.
Thank you. Sometimes I just lost my stepmom and an uncle a couple of weeks before Christmas. And one thing that's clear to me is that sometimes when people we love who are dying, it's almost a gift, I think, that we don't realize when we're able to spend some time with them, although painful. And the lady who spoke about, you know, her friend Stephen dying, for you to be able to write about that journey is somehow cathartic, I think. And when I think about, you know, my stepmom and uncle dying, it's tough. It's hard for people who are around them, but we get a lot. We get a lot from watching that journey. So thank you for reading that. And thank you again, a shout out to Janie for her book about, I still have it, but it's basically for caregivers. And I highly recommend that. Janie's gone away, but I'm sure it's difficult for people who are caregivers to be around people who are very ill. So thank you for those journeys and sharing them.
Yeah, very interesting mix of things happening today. Current
Yeah.
events have times feel rather fraught, and then the mix of joy and personal thoughts, just interesting, kind of nice to hear and share with others. So
Right.
thank you all for showing up.
Thanks for having the program.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it helps all of us live,
Thank you, Zach.
you know, yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll plan on doing it again. Keep your
Please, yes.
eyes out for other dissertations that show up in the library, or anything else that seems like it would be good to share. It's good to have community, I have to say.
Yes, it is.
I have a technical question. I had trouble getting in today into the meeting. Did anybody else have trouble? Zoom kept rejecting the password. And I had copied and pasted it. And I thought, well, maybe it didn't paste right. So I typed it in twice, and then I copied and pasted again. I think it was
Did
the
you get
fifth.
his last text, email? The whole thing was different.